Welcome to the Tuesday, September 1st, 2020 electronic meeting of the Ann Arbor City Planning Commission. This meeting is in accordance with executive orders from the governor to affect social distancing and mitigate the spread of the COVID-19 virus. We intend to conduct this meeting similarly to an in-person meeting. However, please be patient if there are technical issues. Public comment will be via telephone only. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, please call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID 954-300-1843. This information is also available on the published agenda, in the public notices section of the city website, and on the broadcast of this meeting on CTN Channel 16, AT&T Channel 99, and online at a2gov.org/watchctn. In that, you'll select the government channel. Item number 2 is the roll call.
Commissioner Woods. Commissioner Briggs.
Here.
Commissioner Mills.
Here.
Commissioner Milstein.
Here.
Commissioner Gibrandal.
Here.
Commissioner Ackerman.
Here.
Commissioner Sauvé.
Here.
Commissioner Abrams.
Here.
Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
Here.
We have quorum.
Very good. Item number 3 is introductions. Mr. Leonard, do we have any this evening?
None this evening.
Very good. Moving on to number 4 is approval of the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda moved by Commissioner Sauvé, seconded by Commissioner Abrams? Is there any discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion to approve the agenda as written, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries, and we will move on with the agenda. Item number 5 is the minutes of the previous meeting. There we have the, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the August 18th, 2020 meeting, moved by Commissioner Milstein, seconded by Commissioner Ackerman. Is there any discussion or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor of the minutes as drafted, please say aye or raise a hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing no one, the motion carries. Next is reports from City Administration, City Council, Planning Manager, Planning Commission officers and committees, and written communications. I'll note that on written communications, we received a number of different packets and communications, so I hope you'll have those in hand and ready. But in terms of the actual reports, we will start with Council Member Ackerman. Do you have any report?
Thanks, Chair Mills. Ordinarily, we would meet following a City Council meeting, but because this is the first, City Council hasn't had a chance to meet this September. But I do have 2 updates that I think are of relevance to all residents in Ann Arbor. The first is that our selection process for a new city administrator continues. We've extended the opportunity for public input as well as the opportunity to hear from the final 3 candidates. You can start this Thursday, September 3rd, from 2 to 4 p.m. with a presentation from Kara Pavlicek, who is the current village manager in Oak Park, Illinois. Following that, on Friday, September 4th, from 2 to 4 p.m., you can hear from Tom Crawford, the city's current interim city administrator and ordinarily our chief financial officer. And then on Tuesday, September 8th, from 2 to 4 p.m., you can hear from Eric Wobser, who's the current city manager in Sandusky, Ohio. In these sessions, there will be a opportunity to hear them present on what their vision for the municipal government would be, as well as their priorities organizationally. And then there's opportunity for Q&A in that format as well. The other update I want to provide, another citywide update, is with respect to the Gelman 1,4-dioxane plume that creeps from the old Gelman Sciences site in Scioto Township east towards Ann Arbor, and most importantly, Barton Pond, the city's drinking water source. Just this past week, the city, as party to a lawsuit against Gelman Sciences, now owned by Danaher, a global conglomerate. We just released a consent judgment, or a legal settlement with the polluter, to seek advanced cleaning of the entire plume that extends from the source and then also east and west of the plume itself. The net kind of bottom line would be a 200% increase in the amount of dioxane pulled out of the ground in the Ann Arbor area. But there's a lot of other supporting detail associated with this consent judgment. So to help you navigate through this very complex legal document, the city has created a number of different resources for your review, which I encourage you to engage in. You can find them by going to the city's homepage at a2gov.org and then just searching in the search bar for Gelman, Gelman. And you'll find a number of resources. You'll find the entire consent judgment language. You'll find 7 videos produced by Dr. Lawrence Lemke, who's our science advisor. He's a professor of hydrogeology at Central Michigan University. And he does a really good job walking folks through. He's a great lecturer, so it's as engaging as the topic can be. And then we have an FAQs page as well, just in case you want the quick and dirty on everything that's going on. So public comment period will begin now, and we encourage your input and before we take a vote. In addition to our local partners, the Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners and the Scioto Township Board of Trustees. All 3 of us are parties in this lawsuit together.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing that important information with us. Next, Mr. Leonard, do you have any report?
Just a couple of scheduling updates on the horizon. Will be the OR Ordinance Revisions Committee has made some progress, I think, on proposed modifications, or at this point, different approaches for planned project modifications. We anticipate bringing those to the full Planning Commission at the next working session. And then just on a bit out front, but in the October working session, the fantastic Deb Goslin has been working to implement our new capital improvement planning software module, and been working with a lot of the subgroups. And so I'm going to be inviting her to provide you with an update on how that process is going at that point, how the scoring metrics have been evolving, and provides that sort of an early opportunity for that progress in advance of you considering it closer towards the end of the year. And that's all.
Great, thank you. Are there any other commissioners or committee liaisons that have anything to report? I'll just note that ORC did meet last week, I guess it was. And so we talked about the planned project modification. So it'll be great to talk about those in the whole committee next week at the working session. And then we also did more discussion of C1A, C1AR. I can't remember what the status was, if it was gonna come back to ORC one more time. Is that right? Or were we gonna take it to everybody?
I was purposely vague. I've been working on that. I might bring that to that same working session. I am 75% sure of that so far. But for members of the public and other interested parties, just as a reminder, if you want to make sure you understand what's going to be on those agendas, we always encourage you to sign up for the Planning Updates Gov Delivery Service, where we share all agendas with all those subscribers.
Very good. So we'll find out on Friday-ish what's on that agenda.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, we're on to item number 7 then, which is audience participation. This is an opportunity for people to speak for up to 3 minutes about an issue that's not listed as a public hearing. So not for the Lockwood or the floodplain ordinance or kind of the business part of Planning Commission. But if there's any other issue, now is the first opportunity to address us. To comment on these matters, you can call 877-853-5247 and enter meeting ID number 954-3006-1843. Mr. Leonard will select callers that have raised their hand calling on you by the last 3 digits of your telephone number. And in order to electronically raise your hand to indicate that you would like to speak, please press *9 on your phone. You'll hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. And when you do speak, please move to a quiet area and mute any television or background sounds that you might have so that we can hear you clearly. And please also state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. We'll give it a little time to see if we have any callers. I don't see any.
Nor do I.
All right, so we will close this audience participation opportunity, but there's another one at the end of the meeting to speak on any topic, and there are public hearings associated with each of our regular business items. Item number 8 is public hearings for the next business meeting. Mr. Leonard?
Yes, we have one new public hearing scheduled for the September 15th meeting. That is a proposed annexation and zoning of 1290 Duvarin Road for Gretchen's House Child Care Center for City Council approval. It's a request to annex a 2.5 acre parcel from Ann Arbor Township and zone it R1A single family dwelling to allow a child care center.
Very good. We are on already to number 9A, which is regular business. This is the Lockwood of Ann Arbor Planned Unit Development Zoning and Site Plan for City Council approval. So we'll start as Mr. Leonard is bringing in the his staff and the development team. We'll start with a petitioner presentation. Oh, wait, so they're not in limbo. They can hear all the instructions.
All right, that should be everybody.
Great. Okay, so we'll have, we'll give the petitioner 10 minutes to make a presentation, and then we'll have the staff presentation followed by the public hearing.
Thank you. This is Mark Lockwood from Lockwood Development Company. Our address is 27777 Franklin Road, Southfield, Michigan. Can you hear me loud and clear? Great.
Yes.
Well, first and foremost, good evening, and thank you, commissioners, and thank you for your time and consideration of our proposal. I will, at this point, jump into an overview of our development project. You can see on the screen that's a rendering of the proposed development on 2195 East Ellsworth, and the proposed development is a 154 apartment mixed income independent senior living community. The building will be a 3-story building, and we're seeking a PUD zoning classification. The building footprint is 57,100 square feet, and we're proposing to, in our planned financing for the project is through the sale of low-income housing tax credits. That's 4% low-income housing tax credits, which are the non-competitive funding allocation, as well as a first mortgage from the Michigan State Housing Development Authority tax-exempt bond mortgage program, as well as the MSHDA, Michigan State Housing Development Authority Mortgage Resource Fund, secondary financing, as well as federal home investment partnership funds. And at this point, we have submitted, several months ago, submitted to MSHDA, and based on our preliminary scoring criteria for the soft funding, which is the mortgage resource funds and home funds, we're in a position to be able to move forward to build the proposed project if we're able to obtain approval for the PUD classification. In terms of residents served, which would be slide 3, if we're going sequentially through. This would be a new housing option, new construction housing option for local seniors whose lifestyles fit with a single building, service-enriched community who do not need dramatically more expensive assisted living on the market rate side. And in addition to that, over 65 of the 154 proposed apartments would be affordable to 60% of area median income or below. We have 2 apartments at 50% area median income proposed, 36 one-bedroom apartments at 60% of area median income is a limit on income and rent. 27 two-bedroom apartments at 60% of area median income or below, and as well as 52 one-bedroom and 37 two-bedroom apartments at market rates.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Lockwood, but could we get the slides, Mr. Leonard or Mr. Kowalski, advanced just so that we can see? We'll give you your time back. It's just I want to make sure that we can all follow along.
I apologize. What on my screen it says it's on residents served. Is that not correct?
On our screen, we're seeing like not presentation mode, and we're still seeing the first slide.
Oh. It says you are screen sharing. Stop share. Apologize. It says I'm sharing my screen. I'm not sure.
Hey, Matt, why don't you try exiting out of it? Let me see if I can pull it up, if it's any better.
Okay, I apologize. On my screen, it looked like it was progressing. So thank you for saying something.
Yep.
I'm not sure what's going on. On my screen, it was.
No problem.
Thank you, though, because I wondered why, and Mr. Lockwood, I wondered why he was not advanced. Right. Okay. Sorry about that. Not sure.
This is why we have the disclaimer at the beginning that we are all adapting and forgiving of each other because that's what we do.
Well, this is not the first time, but that's the first time that's happened. So I'm not sure why today.
No problem.
Perhaps, Brett, it is in the U plan folder, the meeting folder. Everybody see that?
Now we can see that. It looks like presentation mode.
Oh, my video's here now.
Oh, perfect. So we gave you time. We'll start the clock.
Sorry about that. I thought everything was good on my screen. It says sharing screen, so.
No problem.
Okay.
All right. Continue
All right, Mr.
on.
Lockwood, I'll follow your cues.
All right, great. Thank you. Appreciate it. So I'll start over on residents served. That 65 of the 154 proposed apartments would be rent and income restricted to 60% of area median income or below, with two of those 65 apartments being restricted at 50% of area median income or below, with rents ranging from $864 a month to $1,074 a month for one bedrooms and $1,058 to $1,246 a month for two bedroom apartments. And then the balance would be 52 one bedroom market rate apartments for $1,995 a month, with the option to add additional a la carte services, which would be dining up to 3 meals a day, weekly or biweekly housekeeping services, weekly or biweekly laundry services, and then included amenities would be activities, transportation, and access to all amenities of the property. So that would potentially run the range from $1,995 a month up to about $2,800 a month, which is significantly lower than comparable assisted living communities in the market. In terms of the included services, would be access to all amenities, which in this case are proposed to include a game room, movie room, arts and crafts room, an interfaith chapel, fitness and wellness room, and barbershop / beauty salon. Additionally, transportation services will be provided for all residents, included in base rent, via a wheelchair accessible shuttle bus, and coordinated enrichment activities, including fitness classes, arts and crafts, games, musical and educational entertainment, and catered social gatherings, also included in the rental charges for both affordable and market rate residents. In addition, there are some available services that would be available to purchase for all residents, which would be dining up to 3 meals daily. 3 meals daily will be available, but not necessarily required to be purchased as part of a dining plan. Weekly housekeeping services, weekly laundry services, and off-site events via transportation services such as concerts and sporting events, and at some point in the future, and other things of that nature, which would be for an additional charge, but only the actual called third-party venue or vendor charges. So moving on to summary of public benefits, would be the first and foremost the creation of 65 affordable housing units of a very high quality in new construction, providing quality senior housing with for just as a compare.
Did others lose the audio?
He's frozen. So Mr. Lockwood, I don't know if you can hear us. I don't know if it's the storm. If you turn off your video, if maybe that will give you bandwidth back.
Okay.
Oh, you're back.
All right. Sorry.
You momentarily froze. So
momentarily froze. Okay. I was just running through the list of public benefits. So we have a stormwater infiltration bed included in the front of the site. So that would be infiltrating the stormwater on the site. We're fortunate to have a pretty high open space percentage, which helps to allow for that sort of system, which would greatly reduce any demand on the existing stormwater system. Existing tree canopy management, preserving many landmark trees and woodland trees. Shared cooperative and joint programming with Clifford E. Bryant Elementary School, for which talks are ongoing. At this point, the school has recently closed on the adjacent property for access and potential future expansion. And we've been in active communication with the school director of capital projects for the school district to cooperate and work in any way that we can to facilitate that project, as well as work on any potential future joint programming in the back open space of the site, of which there's quite a bit. On the issue of open space, we'd be preserving 61.7% of the open space of the site, which is a pretty high percentage for a large development of this sort. There'd be dual charging stations available for electric vehicles. We'd be extending a sidewalk into the public right-of-way to the east of our site, which would connect with the existing sidewalk that does not go all the way to the property line, which would in turn provide access or pedestrian access to the ride stop that is on Ellsworth to the east of our site. And then also the site provides 100% infiltration of all impervious spaces, which will reduce the stormwater running off to neighbors from the current 7.92 acres that does not have any stormwater management as far as runoff, to 1.64 calculated acres of runoff, which is a significant reduction. Next up, we have a slide showing the site with the open space. We have certainly open space throughout the site, in between some of the wings of the building and significantly in the front of the site, or the southern end of the site, with the infiltration bed, as well as a large buffer on the back of the site, or the northerly.
Mr. Lockwood, you froze again. It might make sense to just turn off your video, and then there might be
The first floor plan, which shows the unit layout, as well as the cluster common area amenities in in the middle of the proposed building. The second story, which also has some additional common area amenities in it as well, with a multi-purpose room, game room, barbershop / beauty salon, as well as a hospitality suite for visiting guests. And then the third story, which has some additional amenities, including the fitness center, the movie theater / TV room, as well as some resident laundry for those residents who choose not to partake in any of the offered laundry services. So beyond that, we have another rendering of the site, as well as the elevations from all directions. And with that, that concludes my portion of our presentation, and I'll hand off to our architect, Jordan London, with Edmund London and Associates. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have going forward and welcome your input. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know where we are on the time check, Mr. Leonard, but
We are at 10 minutes.
so perhaps if there's questions for the architect, we'll be able to include that once we get to that just part of the discussion.
Okay.
If we can, now we'll move on to any presentation or things that Mr. Kowalski would like to add.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So I want to touch on just a couple of the highlights from the proposal in front of you tonight. The basic generals details, but as well as going to a little bit of the master plan area, which is very relevant to this discussion. So as you know, kind of the 3 stories it is a PUD. So we're writing the supplemental regulations that go along with that. So as many of you know, with the PUD, it is the customizable zoning district. So however, it is also the benefits of that is we do have them fixed into that zoning district. Even if this proposal, for whatever reason, the site plan may not go forward, the zoning district, if it was approved ultimately by council, would have these requirements in it, even if another developer would pick it up, if it was approved by council ultimately. So again, there's a maximum of 154 units on the site. I wanted to cover the maximum floor area of the proposal is 170,000 square feet. Again, that is a 3-story proposal. So I think it was mentioned earlier, the base floor plate was about 50-some thousand square feet. So total, it's written as 117,000 square feet as a maximum floor area for the building. Accessory uses were covered, but again, those are accessory uses that are only available to the residents of that actual facility. So things like, as was mentioned earlier, the dining facilities, the beauty salon, things like that would be available for the residents themselves. That is also written into the supplemental regulations as an accessory use. Moving on to kind of the some of the elements of the master plan, as was written in the staff report. This site was part of a site-specific recommendation for the South Area Plan originally, and it was part of the South Area Plan site recommendation for this site did cover about 20 acres. Again, it did include about approximately 8 acres of this proposal. So I want to touch a couple of items here from staff's point of view that help support the goal, ultimate goal of this project, which would be, as you very well know, affordable housing is a prominent goal of all of our master plans and items. So a couple of the items through the land use element that we really touched on here were, these are kind of the objectives and goals that are taken directly from the master plan to ensure that the development projects are designed and constructed in a way that preserves or enhances the integrity of the natural system. Again, we think with the significant amount of open space towards the rear of the parcel, well, in general, this almost 62% open space in general. However, the large amount of open space to the rear, which will essentially remain untouched other than removal of some invasive species and things like that. The strong open space linkages with new development that again is related to sidewalks, but as well as potentially working with the school system to install that kind of linkage and connect those properties and make that kind of an ideal aspect for many people in that neighborhood, students as well as the residents of development and adjacent residents. Locate higher residential densities near mass transit routes. Of course, this is directly on the AATA route. Improve safety and accessibility of walking, biking, and using mass transit. Again, the location of this directly on with the additional sidewalk, as well as the location directly on the AATA bus route. And encourage affordable housing units to be constructed as part of a new development proposal. Again, that's something that kind of we've touched on. Obviously, that's a large amount of this proposal in front of you. And the way that the supplemental regs are written would require a minimum of 40% of affordable housing for this. So again, if ultimately this development and the rezoning did get approved by City Council, those PUD regulations for this property, whether it was this developer or anybody else, would be required to provide a minimum of 40% of the total units as affordable housing. Now, as many of you know, a PUD is required to provide affordable housing when it exceeds the base residential density on the site. The site is currently zoned R1C. And so again, obviously the proposal in front of you does exceed that density. They would be required by code to provide 15% of the required units. And again, they are providing 40%. So they definitely exceed that. An economical land use by reducing the parking areas. That's kind of really another key feature of this is our current city code under a multifamily development, something similar to this would require 1.5 spaces per unit. So that would be well over 200 spaces. And with the PUD, we have the ability to kind of flex that parking requirement. So they're essentially, well, they are providing 154 parking spaces. So that will be written in the supplemental regulations as well. That the reduction of parking is something that was, again, mentioned in a previous Lockwood proposal. Staff had looked into developments of this developer and similar ones to, make sure that that parking count would be adequate. And it seems from our studies and information provided that it would, at this point, it seems like it would be more than adequate. Again, some of the significant natural open space, we've kind of covered that, adjacent to the school facilities and playgrounds. And also, so again, just the final kind of rundown of some of the features here that fit into elements of our master plan, a reduction of the impervious surface over what would typically be required, diverse housing types. You can see obviously senior housing, affordable senior housing, and the mix of units is, typically that's something that the city encourages, the mix of units, and also providing the affordable housing units on site. The increase in pedestrian connectivity regarding the sidewalks. Dark sky compliant fixtures, that's also an issue that I know is a concern for adjacent residents, as well as the city in general. So as part of the PUD, they'll be required, and I know the city is actively working on our dark sky ordinance, but they are going to comply with that. It is written into the PUD supplemental regulations, so they'd have reduced lighting and dark sky compliant. Preservation of natural features, that's something that's worth mentioning as well. There's 31 landmark trees on the site, and 21 of those 31 will be saved. And as you can kind of see some of the previous slides, the majority of the natural features, the landmark trees, are kind of in that rear, as you can see near the top of the screen, that the rear area there, which has, at this point, it does have notable landmark trees in there. However, there are a lot of invasives in there as well. So those will help to be removed as this, as the landscaping goes forward and the landscaping plan. That is one of the items. So as a good segue to that, staff is recommending postponement at this time. Staff was still working there. As I mentioned, there's a significant amount of natural features on the plan. So there's still some fine tuning of the mitigation measures and planting and what kind of is required. There are a lot of existing trees on the site. Conflicting land use buffers are typically required, but we don't usually want to remove mature trees to put in smaller trees. So we are working through the plan as we speak. I mean, I think as staffs, and I did speak with the landscape reviewer last week, we do believe these issues are definitely They can be conquered. There's no problem. We can get through these issues. So, but however, at this time, there's still some remaining numbers that need to be fixed. So again, at this time, staff is recommending postponement, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kowalski. Now we will open the public hearing. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about the proposed Lockwood of Ann Arbor Planned Unit Development Zoning District and Site Plan. Public comment can be made by calling 1-877-853-5247 and then entering meeting ID 954-300-61843. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand and will call on you one by one using the last 3 digits of your telephone number. In order to electronically raise your hand, please press *9 on your phone. And just a reminder to please, when you're speaking, move to a quiet area and mute any television or other background noise so that we can hear you clearly. And please also state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. So we will.
So I thought it was a little unusual that we don't have anybody calling in, especially with the communication they received. So I just tried dialing in, and when I entered the meeting ID, it was said the meeting ID or the meeting is not supported, something to that effect.
Oh, good to know.
So I'm not sure what the issue is exactly.
I'm just double checking the numbers. And you put in the numbers that were on the agenda, Mr.
I tried 6 times. I tried the 2 different phone numbers for Zoom, and I looked up to make sure the numbers matched on the agenda as well as the Legistar website, and they do.
Thank you for doing that.
Yes, thank you very much. I was curious about why we didn't have any callers either. Oh, Mr. Leonard, you're muted.
Thank you, Commissioner Milstein, for bringing that up. If we could, I might suggest we actually take a brief recess, maybe about a 10-minute recess to around 7:50. And I can investigate to see if I can determine if it's something that can be corrected to make sure we have those access. Because I definitely want to make sure that's working for these public hearings.
That sounds fantastic. I would be in favor of that. We need to vote on that. Yes. All in favor of taking a 10-minute recess to return at 7:50. Please say yes. Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We will take a 10-minute break.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard.
back to order. Thank you for sticking with us during the time out. We have had technical difficulties. If you want to recap, Mr. Leonard, what you recommend in terms of our action plan.
Yes, my apologies to the petitioner here and to the public. We have had some technical issues with our client here running the virtual meeting, which has not allowed us to take public comment via the phone numbers that have been published on the agenda. For that reason, while we have identified another way, I think for it is in the interest of the Planning Commission to continue these public hearings to the September 15th meeting. So to do so, my recommendation would be for the Planning Commission to take specific action. In this case, it would be to close the public hearing, consider the motion, and then I would recommend a postponement of that motion to the September 15th meeting. That way, any members of the public who have been alerted to this meeting will understand that this meeting with the public hearing will be continued to that meeting. And in the meantime, when that agenda is republished, we can ensure that that access is going to be operational again. And I would anticipate the same recommendation for the future agenda items as well.
Got it. Okay. So where we ended was that we had the public hearing open. So I'm going to close the public hearing. I'll read the motion so that we can move it, put it on the table, which is the motion is the Ann Arbor City Planning Commission hereby recommends that the mayor and city council approve Lockwood of Ann Arbor Development Planned Unit Development, Zoning District, and Supplemental Regulations, PUD Site Plan and Development Agreement. That's moved by Commissioner Ackerman, seconded by Commissioner Sauvé. Commissioner Ackerman.
I would move that we postpone this item until September 15th, which is 2 weeks from today.
Moved by Commissioner Ackerman, seconded by Commissioner Abrams. Any discussion about the postponement? All in favor of postponing this item, please raise your hand or say yes. Yes. Anyone opposed? No one is opposed. So this will be postponed. Thank you for sticking with us, petitioners. We're sorry for the technical difficulties. We look forward to seeing you on the 15th when people will also be able to call in as well. Thank you.
Thank you also.
Thank you.
All right, so then what we will do is move to the next item. I am thinking that we should not, I defer to you, but I'm thinking that we should have the presentation along with the public comment at the same time. So if it's okay, we'll skip over and I will just read the proposed motion. Is that fine, Mr. Leonard?
Yeah, I would just say for the purposes of just explanation on the agenda item, I would recommend postponement of this item as well, so we can continue the public hearing to 9:15. This proposed action would be amendments that modify the current regulations for floodplain regulation in the city by adding the floodplain overlay zoning district. You have seen this in previously at a working session, I believe. Since that time, we have also conducted a public webinar as an opportunity to answer questions about it and share some of that information as well. That is available still online if folks are interested in viewing that. So, and I do think it makes sense to postpone the presentation corresponding with this to that public hearing so we can present all of that information at the same time. But for those interested in this particular topic, please pay attention. Any proposed postponement to 9:15 would result on it reappearing on that agenda.
And there will be an opportunity for public comment clearly then.
Yep.
Okay, so I should read the motion and we'll move it and then somebody can make a motion to postpone. Is that the right process? Okay, I'm seeing some nods. So the motion is the Ann Arbor City Planning Commission hereby recommends that the mayor and city council approve the amendments to Chapter 55 Unified Development Code, which would add section 5.14.2 and modify sections 5.18.4, 5.18.6.d.1.a, 5.27, 5.29.1, 5.29.3.f.4, 5.29.12.d, and 5.37.2 to establish a floodplain overlay district and regulations to effectively regulate floodplains throughout the city. That's moved by Commissioner Ackerman, seconded by Commissioner Briggs. Commissioner Ackerman?
I would move to postpone that till September 15th.
Excellent. Seconded by Commissioner Milstein. Any discussion? Commissioner Briggs?
Yeah, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time to discuss this because I'm not sure how much discussion we should wait till the next time. But one piece around re-notification, Mr. Leonard, I was wondering, we had emailed a little bit about this earlier today. It sounds like people who are in the floodplain weren't necessarily notified about this particular meeting, but they were about the Planning Commission meeting, but they were notified about the previous public hearing. Is that correct? Or I'm trying to figure out, how is this notified differently than maybe the public comment, the general comment period that happened in July?
So, so this was for this meeting, for this public hearing, it was notified like any text amendment, which is published, and we also share it with all the registered neighborhood associations. By the nature of this amendment, sort of modifying existing floodplain regulations, we have not noticed it in a geographic basis where we've notified specific property owners, but rather we've notified it widely, like on a more widespread basis through that notice. So that's done pursuant to the UDC. The webinar that we took on after the previous discussion about making sure we shared this information widely, that was sort of shared much more widely. That was done through press release, through social media channels, through the website. So we really endeavored to just get that information out for that webinar very broadly, but we don't tend to deviate from the UDC prescriptive process by our own accord about what amendments should receive higher level of notification than others. So while we did do that for the webinar, which really isn't part of the formal consideration process, we didn't do anything additional than we would for any other text amendment for this meeting.
Got it. That makes sense. The only issue that I was going to sort of raise as a discussion point during this process is, there's obviously this great work. It's culmination of a lot of wonderful work on part of staff, but it's something that impacts 10% of the area of our city, and it's pretty significant. And we've had one webinar during a pandemic, and I'm a little concerned that was a wonderful webinar. I watched it. There were great questions and answers. I thought it was lovely. I have a sense that something a little bit more robust should be done for a text amendment of this magnitude that really impacts where people can build. And there's also been some public comment suggesting we should go further from a policy perspective that also got raised in that webinar. And then of course, we can anticipate that there's probably a fair amount of concern about people not being able to build residentially anymore. So I just wanted to raise that as a point. Maybe it's just something I need to raise again. And when it comes back on the September 15th, maybe it's something that I just wanted to get it out there in case there was something more that could happen between now and then.
Well, certainly between now and then, we could look to sort of more widely share information about this, sort of more akin to what we did with the webinar. But and I would take that, but I would be kind of taking that direction from you as the Planning Commission, because again, a lot of text amendments could have broad implications, and so it becomes difficult. Some petitions are very easy to do on a very targeted geographic basis. Ones like this where we're modifying, there's a lot of existing floodplain restrictions already. Modifying those in this regard, it does cover a lot of ground. So I would say ultimately that comfort level is up to you as the Planning Commission, but I'd be happy to work to make sure we communicate that'll, in addition to your action, that it'll be coming up again on the 15th. But I can also be confident that there will still be folks who don't access those and probably are not paying attention.
Commissioner Milstein?
What is there an opportunity that we might be able to postpone this further than the 15th? So I'm thinking like our first meeting in October to allow for Mr. Hancock or, planning staff to do another webinar. I spoke to several people over the last couple of days in regards to this, and that most of them had no idea this was happening. And I know many of them aren't paying any attention. So I understand that, but I feel like the number of people that I spoke about this were interested enough that they would want to learn more. So I don't know if that's something that, city staff might consider doing another webinar of some sort. And the only reason I say postpone it until our first meeting in October is so there's enough time to advertise and have enough time to plan for the webinar.
I don't know if we want to promote Mr. Hancock or if that's something that you want to take on, Mr. Leonard.
Both. While I'm promoting Mr. Hancock, I would ask what you would want to see in a webinar distinct from what we've already provided. So we've already, we've got the webinar available online where we present the overview and the ordinances in that form. Is there content that you didn't see in that webinar that you think we should cover? Or is it just a matter of sharing that webinar with the public again?
I would want it shared and/or another one, same one done again, so that people have more. So there's some Q&A as well. That's part of it.
Yeah,
Commissioner Briggs.
yeah, I agree. I think the webinar was great. I think the benefit of a webinar is that ability for the public to interact back and forth, as opposed to a public hearing at the Planning Commission where you get 3 minutes and that's your say. And so I think the benefit is a little bit more engagement. The other piece that I would really want to see maybe identified a little bit more on the city's website is it's at least not very clear to me from the maps that are publicly available exactly where the overlay zone impacts, to be able to sort of be able to see very clearly whether that is going to be impacting what properties that's going to impact, or maybe it's an explanation about how to use the online mapping system better. But I certainly, when I tried to access the city mapping, city's maps, that didn't become much clearer for me when I see the slides in the in our presentation of the webinar. It's not crystal clear exactly what portions of the city this is going to impact. So I would think slightly better publicly available maps would be helpful. But I thought the webinar was great. I think it's just nice to be able to have that back and forth.
Yeah, generally, we could look at that, and I'll have Mr. Hancock jump in if I misspeak here, but just to remember, the floodplain maps aren't changing from how they exist now. They're referencing the same floodplain maps that have been provided to the city by FEMA, and we already regulate within those. So the properties that are regulated now are continuing to be regulated. We are changing what some of those regulations are, but the geography of that is not changing with these proposed amendments.
Right, and I understand that. I just think it's difficult to interpret what that space is, even on our existing maps. One thing that might also be helpful is an explanation at some point of what those pink stars mean on the map. I assume that has something to do with floodplain, but I couldn't find anything about that. And it could be my fault.
So there's currently, what we're discussing right now, the motion on the floor right now is for a postponement to the 15th. The question I think that this raises is, should that motion potentially be amended, if it's a friendly amendment, to the first meeting in October? Is that effectively, Alex, what you're asking for? And also asking staff if that makes sense. Like, would that time allow for another holding of a webinar or some kind of live event with some back and forth?
I would, if we are going to do that, I would want to get notice out well in advance of that. And like, I'm just thinking about timing, the ability to get that scheduled a month out to like.
And I'm okay with it. It doesn't have to be first week of October. You know, it could be the second, our regular second meeting in October. I don't care about the timing. I just want to make sure that there's enough timing.
I would suggest the 19th or the 20th, the second meeting in October. While not finalized, it's looking like the first agenda might be also getting, have several projects on it already. So I would say the 20th would be better for a time frame if you desired for us to do another webinar. I guess I would appreciate any other feedback other than mapping and just another Q&A opportunity if there's other content that you want to make sure we cover for your consideration in October.
Commissioner Abrams.
In one of the communications that we received today, there was an email from the group on Mulholland, and they had a bullet pointed list of questions/concerns, which would maybe be a good starting point for topics to address on the webinar.
Would you like, okay, all right.
The Commissioner Briggs.
I guess in terms of other content, this sort of got touched upon in the webinar. We got an email about it today about why not go further. And I think that, you know, there's that push and pull about how far the city moves on this. I think that's something that part of the community is raising right now as well.
I don't know what we typically do, how things, you know, how Mr. Stanton gets leads on stories, you know, the things that are before us that he's reporting on. But if there's any outreach that we can have to other media outlets, because I think this is something that is broadly applicable.
Yeah, that would have been provided previously when we did the press release, but we can do that again.
Particularly if there's an opportunity for another thing, and knowing, like, now having, I'm not sure what was available for the webinar, but having the draft now, because it's part of our, you know, because it was part of our packet and has been circulated, I think that might be really helpful. And this is where some of those maps may help to educate. Maybe people don't realize that they're in the flood fringe. And so that's, if we can do that, I would recommend that between now and the next time we meet to discuss this. Like, not the next time we meet, actually. So if there's any other comments about the postponement, and I just want to verify that it's a friendly amendment to be the October 19th. That was moved by
20th.
Commissioner Ackerman. Are you cool with us changing the postponement amendment?
It's October 20th.
October 20th, sorry. Thank you. Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
Just since you're looking for, I'm just trying to think through like process and a new webinar and blah, blah, blah. And maybe it'd be like more streamlined or efficient if you don't necessarily repeat the content, since that webinar is available, but make sure that recording really gets out there and any sort of push you do through media. But then maybe the next webinar is more like just an open Q&A session where you don't necessarily, like, you can have stuff to show, but it's more for people to come and ask any questions related to the stuff you've already done. Then you don't have to be like repeating yourself necessarily, but just if it's advertised as like a Q&A. Give more time for people too to maybe ask questions.
All right. Any Commissioner Gabrandel?
I feel like there may be a whole new crop of people though with this.
You don't think they can just watch the webinar though?
I think that people get noticed about something and they show up for that and don't necessarily like do the homework, you know, we're all
Fair.
busy and stuff like that. I'm also just wondering if there's any way geographically to distribute this. Like, so I've pulled up the mapping system, and our we have this incredible resource here, just so that we know. A lot of other places don't have access to this. I always love working in Washington County because I can pull up all kinds of information, but it's kind of clunky to use it. And I think that's what Commissioner Briggs is getting at. It's not very user friendly. It takes time to kind of figure it out. It's even though it's an amazing resource. And I'm just looking at some of these patterns across here in terms of, and this is kind of a level of, I don't know if there's any way through city council people or something to be able to let people know where there really are, there are some, in my neighborhood, in the Allen Creek neighborhood, there are just certain streets, there are just certain zones that people, are going to be impacted by this. They just will be, and so I don't know if there's any way to get that granular about it, or if there's some way to be able to, through like, again, alternative media outlets like Nextdoor or something like that, to be able to let people know, because I think a lot of people would like to know about what's going on with this, because it has, it has an impact on being able to put an addition on your house. There are so many houses that are in these areas. I mean, it's really incredible. I mean, so many. Mine's right next to it. Like, I'm not in it, but I'm right next to it. And I think people are going to want to know this. And I think it just takes time for it to roll out in terms of the information getting out there. But I'm just wondering if there are any alternative ways besides posting on the city's website that may be possible to be able to get out to people that are, their property is right in it. I mean,
and I would suggest that at least here, like, I'm also right, I'm just downstream from you, right. Commissioner Gibb Randall. If there is an organized neighborhood association, I don't know about it. I'm not part of it. And so I think that I have neighbors that are in that boat. So
to speak.
I'm sorry, Mr. Leonard.
I just wanted to, so I would, if we do another webinar, we will probably notice it the same way that we did. And so I just want to share with everybody how we did that. So before the webinar, obviously we had our dialogue with you through the working session. We also, Jerry also presented to the Environmental Commission, but the specific webinar, we promoted that via Facebook. It was posted on the city's website calendar. We advertised it through tweets on the city's Twitter account. We promoted it via the Nextdoor app. We sent out a press release to all of our media partners. The draft ordinance was available on the website at that time. We sent an email out to over 2,700 people who have signed up for our various Gov delivery lists. There was a story on WEMU regarding the proposed changes. And then obviously afterwards, the webinar was posted. So I guess I would say that we would follow that same protocol. I think that everything you're talking about is encapsulated that. I think that my partners at the city did a pretty good job of sort of thinking for those avenues. Not everybody obviously who wanted to heard about it from those avenues, and that same thing will happen if that. But we'll take that direction. But I just want to be clear. I think some of the ways that you're talking about here, that was done. So it will not be perfect by any stretch.
Yeah. That's great to hear. It sounds like you all did a very robust job. Do you have any? Like, I know when we run a meeting, people have to sign in and there's their address and all that kind of thing. Is there any record of who attended, or is it just totally open?
We have a record of who attended the webinar.
And do you have their email addresses or no?
We have email addresses. If I might have to check, but I think we have email addresses for everybody who attended that. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if it could get pushed to those people to say, talk to your neighbors.
Yeah.
Just as a starting point, because that's how water runs, right? So I'm just wondering if there's a way just to be able to kind of take that extra step, because I think that may be a niche that we haven't taken advantage of, but it sounds like you all really covered a lot of bases. So I'm impressed with what you did for your outreach. But maybe that's one other kind of nuance of something that we could, if we have records of that, to be able to send that to people and just say, please talk to your neighbors or send things out, you know, to be able to let people know. Yeah. And then I guess my other thought, as Commissioner Milstein is talking about it, it really matters to realtors, right? And so I'm just wondering if there's some sort of alert that could go out through that type of channel as well, because I bet you'd get a whole group of people that would be, and then they can be disseminators of information too, as they are. So I don't know if there's, I'm sure there's some sort of official groups out there, Commissioner Milstein, that might be open to that kind of thing, and they don't have to do it, but they could promote it, and then a whole other group of professionals, and then who they educate could have greater reach too.
I'm pretty sure the Ann Arbor Area Board of Realtors would disseminate this to our membership, which would be close to 1,000 realtors.
Commissioner Briggs.
I just wanted to say thank you for contemplating another or moving forward with another webinar. I think it's great. I know it can kind of feel cumbersome because you've already done a really robust one, and I thought it was great engagement. I just think that the more that we sort of really embrace that idea of robust community engagement before a really significant, considering a really significant ordinance change, the more we can sort of feel confident that people have had the opportunity to engage as we have these discussions. And so I think another webinar is just, it's, you know, it'll hit a new group of people who felt bummed out that they missed the first one, and they could go back and watch it, but this will be their opportunity to watch it live and interact personally with questions.
This makes lemonade out of the needing to postpone this tonight too. Maybe it's a sign. Okay. So the motion that we're talking about now, it seems to be friendly to Commissioner Ackerman and Mr. Leonard. I can't remember who was the second.
Commissioner Milstein.
Okay. To postpone this until October 20th. Any other discussion? All in favor of postponing it to the 20th, please say yes or raise your hand. That looks like every hand. This is postponed until the 20th of October.
Is that you postponed?
Yes.
All right. Sorry, my other computer went to sleep, so I'm waking it back up so I can figure out what else is on the agenda. Okay, we're on to item number 10A, unfinished business, which will remain unfinished. I'll read the motion again. The first thing is for our fiscal year 2021 work plan. There wasn't a public hearing plan for this, but does it still make sense to just move that on since there's no opportunity for people to have comments before or after this? What do you think?
That's at your discretion. No public hearing is required, but you know, not having access to even to the general public comment. I know we've received at least one written correspondence regarding it, so I think that might make sense. I would welcome any comments you have. When I started adding everything that came up during our discussion, it seemed too ambitious. And I guess I'd appreciate any feedback about things that I mischaracterized that weren't intended to be work plan items, or maybe your ideas for getting rid of 10 items to make it more manageable.
All right, so what it sounds like is that I will read the motion and then we can, if we want those things, then it should be during discussion. The Ann Arbor City Planning Commission hereby adopts the City Planning Commission fiscal year 2021 work plan. Moved by Commissioner Sauvé, seconded by Commissioner Abrams. Discussion or any movements? Commissioner Milstein.
Move to postpone to our meeting on September 15th.
Seconded by Commissioner Sauvé. Any discussion of that other than to say, do we want to give Mr. Leonard anything to work on in the meantime?
Just want to be clear, are you postponing to September 15th? The next meeting. Okay, thank you. And who seconded that?
Commissioner Sauvé.
Thank you.
Commissioner Abrams.
Just a clarification. So we are going to have a conversation now, a discussion now, or we're deciding if we're going to have discussion now?
Well, I guess right now we're talking about the motion to postpone. So is there any comments about the motion to postpone?
But would we do that first and then have discussion, or would we have discussion and then do that?
No one once it's postponed, so we're done talking about it. No one chimed in
Okay.
before Commissioner Milstein moved to postpone. So I think that we've closed that, unless in your comments about whether or not you think we need to change the date of postponement, there's any words of wisdom that you want to give to Mr. Leonard to work on in the 2 weeks, which includes Labor Day. We're always very ambitious, is what I would say. And I don't, we're always very ambitious. We can hash it out at the next week's meeting, 2 weeks meeting. Commissioner Sauvé.
Yeah, I'll just say about where things are. I think it would be nice to see, since we're making progress with planned projects at this time, there isn't a time frame on that one, so it might be nice to see an update in that column as well about what our tentative kind of target of adoption, since we have seen that before. And I think that starts to kind of percolate in some of those things that are solidly in progress that I think are going to knock off by the end of the year, which lightens the load for the 2021 effort.
And to be clear, we're in fiscal year 2021 now. We're like 2 months into it, right? So we've got 10 months left. What you're looking to lose one thing a month between here and now. So any other comments? I would just say that one of the things that you said was, let's lose some things, which I think is legit, and so to give you direction about where to have staff start. But you also mentioned, because we've been asking and mentioning it, that this doesn't necessarily include any enumerated list from A20. And I'm wondering if the staff in the Office of Sustainability has a list, or, I mean, that's something that I know the Environment Commission is what you're on, right, Commissioner Gibrandel? There's a process starting to look at some of those, not exclusively, but in part. But I don't know if there's any other discussions from staff. And so if there is, getting that feedback between now and then would be really helpful. The idea of looking at a whole bunch of ordinances that come through that your subcommittee of the Environment Commission is doing, that's on your fiscal year 2021 work plan. Is that right, Commissioner Gibrandel? So the timing for that would really factor into us
Correct. Yeah.
next year.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's not going to get done this year.
Right.
For sure.
So unless if there's something urgent coming from staff, from the Office of Sustainability staff related to A20 implementation, I think that makes sense. Otherwise, I think hopefully we can get from Environment Commission that list of ordinance changes to make sure that we're factoring into the 2022 work plan. Is that fair?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Any other comments about postponement? All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Yes, that is everyone. Okay, it is postponed. And then the other item is Subcommittees and designee appointments. I'll read it. The motion is the Ann Arbor City Planning Commission, unless there's something that you wanted to say about it, Mr. Leonard, but otherwise I think this is a fast one the next time around. The Ann Arbor City Planning Commission approves the Planning Commission subcommittee and designee appointments as presented, which is moved by Commissioner Sauvé, seconded by Commissioner Abrams. Any discussion or motions? Commissioner Briggs.
Just a point of clarification, does this start effective immediately? So for example, ORC, I'm not planning on it for the end of September, is I guess my question.
Yes, it would be effective. So if it were enacted as presented on 9/15, then Commissioner Commissioner Hammerschmidt would take that spot on the ORC.
Great, thank you.
So it sounds like you might want to mark your calendar, Commissioner Hammerschmidt.
Well, I was coming last week.
Any other comments, or Commissioner Hammerschmidt?
While I'm unmuted, I don't know what's happening exactly with the master plan committee, but did you make a comment in our working session that being on both the ORC and the master plan review is like crazy? They're both a lot of work.
It'll be fine.
Okay, all right, trust you.
Anything? Anyone want to make a motion to postpone this until the 15th? Moved by Commissioner Ackerman, seconded by Commissioner Briggs. Any discussion about the postponement? All in favor of postponing this until the September 15th, please say yes or raise your hand. That is every hand. That is postponed. Item 11 is audience participation, which is difficult because people can't call in. And there's no one on the phone. So I think I'm moving past this. Oh, we saw your papers, Mr. Leonard.
If you'd like, you could, if you'd like to hold the general public comment, we could share the number that worked. It's up to you.
If that's okay, let's try. We've already stuck around. If anybody's with us online and they want to call in, I think that would be okay with me.
Okay.
So do you have the dial-in number is?
Yeah, so this would be an opportunity for persons to address the Planning Commission on any item. As a reminder, Lockwood on Ellsworth has been postponed to September 15th. The proposed floodplain overlay has been postponed to October 20th. The two administrative functions of proposed work plan and committees have been postponed to September 15th. However, for general public comment, if anybody would like to address the Planning Commission for up to 3 minutes, public comment can be made by calling 213-338-8477. That's 213-338-8477. And putting in the meeting ID as shared on the agenda, which is 954-3006-1843. We will pause for a minute and see if any callers call in, and I will bring you into the meeting. If you'd like to speak, please press *9. We will bring you into the meeting and provide you up to 3 minutes to address the Planning Commission. My apologies for our technical issues. It's because I said that this is our 15th meeting. Not seeing anybody.
All right. Number 12 is commission proposed business. Does anyone have anything? I would just wonder, I don't know how common this issue is with Zoom and if it's like the toll-free number versus the, paid number. If in the future, providing the 2 toll-free numbers plus a paid number on the agenda, giving an option that might be more fail-safe. I just offer it. I don't know how common this is and if it's associated with toll-free. I like the idea of having toll-free for public access, but this is frustrating for people who, may have, I guess you don't have to get a babysitter in COVID times, but, organize things to be able to participate tonight.
Yeah, we can look into it. The city did specifically contract to have those toll-free numbers to make sure access was as sort of with as least burden as possible. And this is my first experience with the phone-in problem, so hopefully it's rare. But yeah, we can look at that as well.
Commissioner Gabrandel.
I'm just wondering if there's a way through Zoom or through your IT department that on the screen that we have in front of us where people are watching, that numbers are there. It just seems like most people are watching, like they're calling in and they're watching at the same time. They're not just on the phone, and those people on the phone have the agenda too. Like we could have maybe solved some of this tonight if like there's a little banner across the bottom that says, what these numbers are, to just make it easy for people to be able to do it so they don't have to scramble through their email or whatever to figure out where the agenda is. And so I've never seen that in Zoom, but you got a couple of weeks to see if it's possible maybe. But I just think that it would be just lower hanging fruit, in terms of people being able to participate. So
yeah, we do that on the CTN feed.
Oh,
so
good.
we
Okay.
do that. And that's what we were talking about. But nonetheless, if folks were relying on the published information, even if we were able to do that, we'd be sort of communicating conflicting information. So
and is I get it. Yeah, right. But in terms of the YouTube feed, is the YouTube one just channeling the, okay.
It's the CTN feed.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
You don't want to like log on to it because then it's like the tunnel of doom where you've got multiple things going on. You're here live and then you're seeing it. But yeah, that's my sense is it looks like. Anything else? Commission proposed business? All right. The final item. Is there anyone who wants to make a motion to adjourn? Moved by Commissioner Milstein, seconded by Commissioner Briggs. All in favor of adjournment, please say yes or raise your hand. Yes. Commissioner Ackerman, anyone opposed?
I've never voted to adjourn because the people's work is never over.
I don't think I ever noticed that. It is not unanimous, but we can adjourn nevertheless.
Actually, you can just
Thank you for that profound statement.